On June 30, 1956, the skies over the Grand Canyon bore witness to one of the most catastrophic events in aviation history, the mid-air collision between United Airlines Flight 718 and Trans World Airlines TWA Flight 2. The disaster claimed the lives of all 128 passengers and crew aboard both aircraft, marking the deadliest aviation accident of its time. This tragedy not only shocked the world but also exposed significant flaws in the existing air traffic control ATC systems and protocols. The repercussions of this disaster were far-reaching, leading to a complete overhaul of the United States air traffic control system and the implementation of new aviation safety regulations. This essay delves into the events leading up to the collision, the aftermath, and the significant changes in aviation policy that emerged as a result of this tragedy. The 1950s were a period of rapid growth for commercial aviation in the United States. As more Americans took to the skies, airlines expanded their fleets, and air traffic grew increasingly congested. However, the infrastructure and regulations governing air traffic control had not kept pace with this growth. The technology of the time, which relied heavily on visual flight rules (VFR) and rudimentary radar systems, was often inadequate for managing the complex and crowded airspace over the country's burgeoning air travel routes. On the fateful day of June 30, 1956, United Airlines Flight 718, a Douglas DC-7, departed from Los Angeles International Airport bound for Chicago Midway International Airport. Simultaneously, TWA Flight 2, a Lockheed L-1049 Super Constellation, took off from the same airport, heading for Kansas City Downtown Airport. Both flights followed a similar route that took them over the vast and rugged terrain of the Grand Canyon, a popular aerial sightseeing route at the time. The airspace over the Grand Canyon, while visually stunning, was notorious for its challenging weather conditions and complex terrain, which could interfere with both visual navigation and radio communications. As the two aircraft approached the Grand Canyon, they were operating under Visual Flight Rules (VFR), which meant the pilots were responsible for maintaining their own separation by visual observation. However, the airspace in which they were flying was not closely monitored by ATC, as radar coverage in the area was limited, and the regulations of the time did not mandate strict air traffic control for VFR flights in such areas. According to investigations conducted after the accident, a combination of factors led to the collision. Both aircraft had requested and received clearance to deviate from their assigned flight paths. United Flight 718 requested to climb to 21,000 feet, while TWA Flight 2 requested to deviate from its flight path due to weather conditions, climbing to an altitude of 19,000 feet. The paths of the two aircraft intersected over the Grand Canyon at an altitude of approximately 21,000 feet, where the collision occurred. The exact moment of impact was around 10:31 a.m. local time. The collision was violent and catastrophic, with the wreckage of both planes falling into the rugged canyon below. The impact of the collision was devastating. Both aircraft were destroyed, and the scattered wreckage was strewn across the remote and rugged terrain of the Grand Canyon. Recovery efforts were hampered by the inaccessibility of the crash site, which required extensive use of helicopters and the expertise of mountaineers to retrieve the remains of the victims and pieces of the wreckage. The severity of the crash and the extensive damage to both aircraft made it difficult to reconstruct the exact sequence of events leading to the collision. The Civil Aeronautics Board (CAB), the predecessor of the National Transportation Safety Board (NTSB), was tasked with investigating the accident. The investigation faced numerous challenges, including the difficult terrain, the extent of the wreckage, and the limited technology available at the time. However, the CAB was able to determine that the collision resulted from both pilots' attempts to navigate their aircraft without the aid of precise air traffic control guidance. The report highlighted the inadequacies of the existing air traffic control system and the reliance on visual flight rules in congested and complex airspaces. Additionally, the investigation found that the pilots' decisions to deviate from their flight paths, though legally permissible under VFR, contributed to the collision. The 1956 Grand Canyon mid-air collision was a watershed moment in aviation history. The incident exposed significant vulnerabilities in the way air traffic was managed, particularly in terms of communication, coordination, and the reliance on outdated technologies and procedures. In response to the accident, the United States Congress took swift action. The Federal Aviation Act of 1958 was passed, which led to the creation of the Federal Aviation Agency. Later renamed the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. The FAA was granted broad authority to regulate and oversee all aspects of civil aviation, including air traffic control, aircraft safety standards, and pilot training requirements. One of the most significant changes that emerged from the reforms was the development of a more comprehensive and sophisticated air traffic control system. This new system integrated radar technology more effectively, allowing for better tracking of aircraft and more precise control over flight paths, even in areas where visual flight rules had previously been the norm. Additionally, the introduction of mandatory instrument flight rules (IFR) for certain airspaces and flight conditions reduced the likelihood of collisions by ensuring that aircraft operated under stricter procedures. The disaster also led to the implementation of the en route air traffic control system, which provided continuous radar surveillance and communication with aircraft flying at high altitudes over large distances. This system significantly improved the ability of air traffic controllers to manage the increasingly crowded skies and coordinate the movements of multiple aircraft in busy airspaces. The changes brought about by the 1956 Grand Canyon collision had long-lasting effects on the aviation industry. The reforms not only improved the safety of commercial air travel, but also set the stage for the modern air traffic control system that is in use today. The implementation of radar-based tracking, along with the development of more advanced communication and navigation systems, has drastically reduced the risk of mid-air collisions and other aviation accidents. Moreover, the creation of the FAA established a centralized authority responsible for the safety and regulation of civil aviation, ensuring that the lessons learned from the Grand Canyon disaster would be applied consistently across the industry. The FAA's oversight has been instrumental in maintaining and enhancing aviation safety standards, leading to a significant decrease in the number of aviation accidents over the decades. The 1956 Grand Canyon mid-air collision stands as a pivotal event in the history of aviation, one that transformed the way air traffic is managed and regulated. The disaster exposed critical flaws in the existing air traffic control system and led to sweeping reforms that have had a lasting impact on the safety and efficiency of air travel. The creation of the FAA and the modernization of the air traffic control system were direct responses to the lessons learned from this tragedy. Today, the principles of safety and oversight that emerged from the Grand Canyon disaster continue to guide the evolution of aviation, ensuring that such a catastrophic event is never repeated. The legacy of the 1956 collision is a testament to the resilience of the aviation industry and its commitment to learning from the past to build a safer future. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe.